Can Arsenal win the Champions League? I think that case, that argument is getting stronger every time I see them, both in the Premier League and the Champions League. This Arsenal side are being slept on. Now, obviously, they're in some big competition with City, with Real Madrid, with Bayern Munich. I've talked about those three on my channel previously, but I don't think I've talked about Arsenal enough in terms of being a serious contender, a serious underdog to win the whole competition. Now, I know it's a bit of a leap, and I know that this Arsenal side is young. They're relatively inexperienced, all playing together in the Champions League. But I think the competition is really there for the taking for Arsenal, and I'm basing it on evidence. In this video, we'll break down what I saw against Lens and what I've been seeing from Arsenal, and why I think there is a chance Arsenal could win the Champions League if things fall their way. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Would really appreciate that. The overview against Lens is really mixed, in my opinion, in terms of how they got a 6-0 win. When you say 6-0 in a footballing context, you think 80% possession, 70% possession, dominating the ball, having all these chances. When actually Arsenal won 6-0 in quite a pragmatic way. I think they ended up having less possession than Lens at a large part of the game. And you feel that Arsenal have changed a little bit. They are more frugal a little bit. When they bomb forward, when they have moments of play, when they have their little spells in the game, I think they're a little bit more conservative. They go forward, they try and create a goal, and if they can't do it, they become a lot more defensively resolute. I think they operate in more 5-minute spells. At points last season, Arsenal would dominate 20 minutes at a time, 25 minutes at a time. It would be a little bit baggy, a little bit side to side, a little bit maybe not cutthroat, a little bit too diffuse, if that makes sense. Against Lens, they picked their moments and they were clinical. To win the Champions League, you need to be a little bit boring. You need to be a little bit, ruthless, clinical. How many times did Real Madrid, I'm not comparing Arsenal to Real Madrid, of course not, but some of the Real Madrid sides that in recent years that won the Champions League, they defend really well. They'd move the ball for 5, 6, 7 minutes at a time, especially late in the game. They'd whip it in back post, Benzema, Ronaldo, and they'd get isolated moments against teams and use little moments in a game to maximise their return in the massive fixtures. I'm obviously talking about the game against, I think about Chelsea when they beat Chelsea at the Bernabeu, when they beat Man City. Isolated moments of quality, I think, goes a long way in the Champions League versus dominating large parts of a football match. I saw that for Arsenal against Lens 6 times. 6 isolated moments where the likes of Martinelli, Saka, even Kai Havertz, we'll talk about him in a minute, are kind of getting these little, the crosses come in, they're being ruthless, they're being aggressive, and if they lose the ball, if there's a turnover in the ball, they sit right back, they all fall in line with Declan Rice, it's almost like huddle around Declan Rice, he's this kind of core to the Arsenal unit, and suddenly Arsenal look very, very hard to break down. They've kept a lot of clean sheets. They've kept a clean sheet against Brentford now, clean sheet against Lens, while putting 7 past them in the last 2 games. So this Arsenal side are defensively miserly. The likes of Saliba, Gabriel, they look really, really assured, really, really powerful in what they're doing. And an unsung hero against Lens, I'd say, is Tomiyasu, who's bombing forward. He's a very, very good, versatile player. Arsenal look like a side that have got the squad that when injuries hit, when there's a lot of rotation coming into the FA Cup period, the Premier League business end of the season, Arsenal have got that squad that can mix it and match it all day long. I think the Champions League is really made up of incredible squads. Obviously, the era of Lionel Messi winning it single-handedly and Ronaldo, I feel like that's a bygone era. And if you look at Arsenal against Lens, the amount of quality that is spread amongst Odegaard scoring, Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, all these guys that are operating at a very, very high level can all, share the burden of the attacking flow. So if you're coming up against Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, if the game's managed in the right way, Arsenal don't need Saka to be performing well. He can just do his job, give it off to Martinelli. Martinelli can give it off to Jesus. Jesus looking very, very good in the Champions League, by the way. Arsenal got a little bit of Champions League experience. They bought it from Man City, they bought it from Chelsea, but Kai Havertz, Jorginho, Zinchenko, Gabby Jesus, obviously the latter didn't win the Champions League, but they got very, very far consistently, multiple semi-final appearances and a final appearances with those two in particular. So there is a lot of experience there. And then we just have to talk about Declan Rice. Again, I love talking about him on this channel. It's one of my favourite positions in football, the defensive midfielder role. his experience with West Ham is so pivotal in my opinion. I know it's a lesser competition. He's playing against the likes of Genk. I get it. But what Declan Rice was doing against Lens was absolutely fantastic. The way he drove with the ball was fantastic. But I think his ability to pass is completely underrated by football fans. There was a ball that he played out to Tomiyasu first time. He whipped it with so much power. So much power. It kind of bypassed the whole Lens midfield. So Declan Rice, one of the best midfielders on the planet right now. How many times have you seen these world-class midfielders guide football sides through difficult games? I'm obviously thinking of Gerrard. He was able to get, him and Alonso were able to get a relatively average Liverpool side through difficult spells, especially in that AC Milan game. We all know about it in Istanbul, of course. But that obviously Djibril Cissé was a good player, and Sami Hyypiä and Jamie Carragher, all good players. But it was the midfield that drove Liverpool through and through in that final. And you feel that Arsenal have got that now. Declan Rice is way above what Thomas Partey was offering last season. He's already hit the ground running in the Champions League. He looks at home in the Champions League, which is always a good sign, because sometimes a player can play in the Champions League, look a little bit off it, a little bit starstruck maybe. And Declan Rice, not in a million years was that ever going to happen, but you never know. £100 million, a lot of money. Against Lens, he's a Rolls Royce. He's a Rolls Royce of a player. I think the case for Arsenal is very, very strong. If you take Real Madrid, Bayern Munich and Man City out of it, they are the best side in Europe. It's crazy saying that. I know Dortmund are doing well in their group. I think it'd be a tough game, but I think Arsenal would beat Dortmund. I'm looking at the Italian sides, for example, the Napolis of the world. I think Arsenal beat them, especially at the Emirates. And Arsenal's record at the Emirates this season is very, very good, including a win against the European champions. That is significant. And we can't forget, all three sides that I rank as the favourites to win the Champions League, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Man City, they could all draw each other after the round of 16. It looks like all three will come top of their group, including Arsenal, so obviously they all avoid each other. But in that quarter-final period, what if Man City, Real Madrid play each other, Bayern Munich get a shock result? Suddenly, the tournament could be completely open by the time, Arsenal in the quarterfinals or later, and suddenly they've got an Italian side in the semi-final. Look how far the AC Milans of the world, the Inter Milan's got. And I felt that when Inter Milan got to the final, it was a little bit of a nosebleed moment for the quality of squad that Inter Milan had. Now, obviously, Inter Milan, European champions multiple times in their own right. But the standard of quality that got to the final for Inter Milan, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't a great final in that regard. Arsenal definitely think if we get to the semi-final and Bayern Munich and Man City are out, and it's just us and Real Madrid in a one-off game, in a cup game. Arteta's got a bit of experience winning a cup, the FA Cup. That doesn't count for nothing. And this squad, their youth is so important in the Champions League. Every week, I think Arsenal getting better. I think they've learnt about the pain of losing the Premier League last season. I think they're more resolute. I think they're a little bit nastier. I think they're a little bit physical. They look bigger in the Arsenal shirts than they did even last season. A large part of that is down to the youth, down to how young they are. They are mouldable. Arteta's guiding them into young men, into bigger footballers. Arsenal could arrive at the end of the season in a better place, having developed an ability to weather the storm, to manage these games. I know it's Lens, but Arsenal have won 6-0 in the Champions League, and not many people are talking about it. 6-0 in the Champions League. It's their first time back in nearly 6 years. They've been great. They're top of the group. They're running away with the group. They're essentially through already. So this is an Arsenal side that are doing it already. The proof is there. It's in the group stage. And then the quality that they've got in that squad. If they add in January as well, I don't know if they'll add another centre-back to replace Timber in the short term, but this Arsenal squad, it looks dynamic, it looks fresh, and that front three, lots of happy smiles, lots of positive tweets. Let's be real, if you're a defender playing against that front three, it's actually scary. We kind of label the scary word towards maybe playing against Haaland, that'd be scary. Playing against Liverpool's front three is kind of considered scary. This Arsenal front three causes havoc. It causes chaos in the back line. And I think Arsenal will go far in the Champions League if the draw goes right and that front three keeps clicking with Declan Rice in behind. I think they've got a chance. It's an underdog shout. It's a dark horse shout. But what I saw against Lens was very, very positive. If you're an Arsenal fan, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll see you very, very soon.